sort of, you're going in a little bit before talking about the Vaded states. Do you want to sort of talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. There's 4 types of Vaded states, and they each have to do with different types of pathologies. And they all have in common that when the Vaded state is in the conscious, when the Vaded state takes over the conscious, it has feelings that the person wishes they didn't experience. It has unwanted feelings. The first 2 are Vaded with fear and Vaded with rejection. And they both almost usually are Vaded in childhood. They've taken on a misunderstanding that they've not been able to let go in childhood. Sometimes they can be Vaded in adulthood, but usually states that are Vaded in fear or rejection are Vaded in childhood. And for example, a person might have a near drowning experience and become really quite emotional about that. And if they didn't have an opportunity to talk to someone about it, that state that experienced that near drowning incident might become Vaded and continue to carry that fear with it. And then later on in life, when that state would come back out, it would come out with that fear. It's a tender spot in the psyche that would come out with its unresolved fear, and that causes things like PTSD, phobias, feeling out of control in a situation, feeling afraid to get in front of a group to talk, feeling afraid of relationships sometimes. And the distinguishing feature of a state that is Vaded with fear is that when it comes to the conscious, the person feels out of control and actually afraid. And they can feel smaller because they often have been Vaded in childhood. And they're, in order to help those states need to be brought to the surface and learn that what they're afraid of now is an illusion. It's no longer here, and they can be safe and supported and have a positive role now. States Vaded with rejection are states that usually in childhood the person has felt rejected, often by a parent, and people who have states Vaded with rejection will feel I'm not good enough. They have a great need to satisfy others. If they satisfy other people, they can feel very good about themselves. If they feel they've let somebody else down, they can feel like I'm terrible, I'm just not good enough. They can have fear of starting work. They can have fear of, I'm afraid if I don't do this well enough, they won't like me. States Vaded with rejection cause eating disorders, anorexia nervosa, and bulimia. They often cause shopping addictions. They cause people to often feel, I have to perform, otherwise it will be awful, because they will feel rejected if they don't do really well. So it's very common for people to have states Vaded with rejection. And again, if they have a state Vaded with rejection, the person needs to be able to have that state brought out by a therapist, and that state needs to learn that it was the other person that was unable to share unconditional love, and that every child deserves unconditional love, and that love is there for it, and the state can get an understanding that it is lovable. There's something I haven't mentioned that's very helpful in that, and that's sensory experience memory. Sensory experience memory is the emotional memory of an incident. And all Vaded states are carrying a sensory experience memory of an original sensitizing event, initial sensitizing event, where that sensory experience memory will come back out and they will experience that fear or that rejection or that confusion or disappointment. But the sensory experience memory can be used to help them get over that sense of not being good enough also. One of the steps in helping someone that has been Vaded with rejection is to allow them to go from the state that felt Vaded to and pretend to be the parent for the person that was rejecting them, and for the therapist to talk to that parent about how they feel about that son or daughter, and that parent of someone who feels baited with rejection will always be represented as not completely unconditionally loving. And that makes sense because the person feels rejected. So after experiencing what it feels like to be the parent, a parent who isn't that good at sharing feelings, maybe loves the child very dearly, but just isn't that good at sharing feelings, and then going back to the rejected state can then realize it's not me, it was my parent at that time wasn't good at sharing love. And every child deserves to be loved, so that child can then learn to take on love from a nurturing part of the same client, and bring a nurturing part in that can share love with that part, and that part no longer will carry that sense of I'm not good enough, I have to perform. That it can get over that sense of the pathology of feeling rejection, and that can change a person's life. The states vaded with confusion are states that something has happened and the person just can't internalize it. They can't let it go. They ruminate about it. It could be around a death. It can be around something that a friend did. It can be around having an adoption and not understanding what has happened in that whole process and how the person feels. And so that state will ruminate about it over and over again and not be able to let it go and feel very confused internally. And those states can be brought out and worked with to clarify that confusion and allow them to feel settled and at peace so they can let that go. And a state baited with disappointment, usually an example, I'll give you a couple of examples of a state baited with disappointment. If someone's in a relationship and their partner has been unfaithful, there might be a state that's so disappointed in that state will not allow any other state to enjoy the relationship. No physical relationship, no morning coffees, no trips, no good conversations. That state is so disappointed it shuts other states down. And so a state baited with disappointment has the power to keep other states from enjoying something. And that's where psychological depression comes from, where it's caused from a psychological root. A state will be so disappointed about something that it keeps any other state from enjoying living, and it shuts other states down, and the physical body actually can become more and more shut down and operate more slowly because there's no state that's actually using that much energy, and it becomes physiological. But it's caused by a state that doesn't give permission to any other states to enjoy the things that they used to enjoy. And so part of the process of working with someone with depression with resource therapy is to find some states that would like to do something and to get permission from that disappointed state to start letting them start doing some of the things that they'd like to do. And then at the same time to start working with that disappointed state to find ways that it can contribute and ways that it can feel positive about itself. Possibly in a way that's different than it used to, and possibly in a way that's not ever going to be as big a role as it used to have, but a role that's important nonetheless. So all of those vaded states have in common that when they come to the surface, when the person is experiencing life from those vaded states, the person feels a bit weak, a little bit out of control, levels of anxiety, fear, rejection, disappointment. It's not a good feeling for the client. And resource therapy has regimens to help those states rejoin that energetic group of resources on the inside and start contributing